Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Climate Confident Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Raj. Raj, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks. It's a pleasure being here, first of all, and thanks for inviting me. My name is Raj DasGupta. I'm the CEO here at a battery company called Electrovaya. And I have a background in material science. I'm very passionate about what we do as a company and how we are help mitigating climate change overall with what we make.
Cool. And tell me a little bit, Raj, before we get into what it is you make, tell me a little bit about the why you make it. What was the genesis behind starting the company?
So Electrovaya has been in the lithium-ion sphere for over 2 decades. And I would say we were one of the pioneering technology companies in the sector. So a lot of firsts, a lot of key developments that the company was involved with in the early days of lithium-ion batteries. So some of which, quite a bit of which is before my time at the company. So I've been with the company for 15 years. But my father and a very close friend, they co-founded the company a long time back. In the early days, Electrovaya was one of the early pioneers in the lithium-ion space in general. I think we were the first company to make lithium-ion pouch cells, which at the time was being directed towards aerospace activities, especially with one of our early projects was with NASA. However, when I joined the company, the real push was for the electrification of the automobile, right? So that was getting a lot of attention globally. We thought that there was going to be, and this is 2009 timing
Sure.
wise, and Obama had just become president, and there was a target for 1 million electric cars in the United States. 2015, I think, was the target. And we had some great partnerships. So Electrify was partnered with Chrysler on some plug-in hybrid programs, and everything was very exciting. What ended up happening was only really one car company took the electrification movement very seriously at that time, and our programs with Chrysler ended up getting canceled, and that's fine. Electrify continued the focus though on automotive applications, where we supply Daimler for, if you've seen those electric smart cars, they're very small
Yeah.
cars. And with Daimler, the premise was we were supplying a safer battery that used a ceramic separator, and that ceramic separator is what goes between your positive and your negative electrodes in your lithium-ion battery. And in our case, the ceramics are stable at high temperatures and make the batteries much more immune to thermal runaway. So when you hear in the news batteries overheated, it can happen for various reasons, external or internal. But what's relatively common in that terminology is the battery overheated means it's technically probably caught fire, and then the neighboring cell also gets overheated and it catches fire. Why does it catch fire? It's because that separator in the battery starts to shrink when it gets to about 100 to 120 degrees Celsius. And obviously, if you get a shrinking separator, you get a cascading short circuit, which is a big fire.
Yeah.
In our case, that's definitely mitigated to a high degree with a ceramic separator, which is stable at high temperatures, and that makes our batteries much safer. And then to date, any battery that we've produced that uses this technology we've had zero battery safety incidents in any, including 20,000 cars and let's say 7,000 material handling vehicles. But again, 2017, that smart car, you don't see too many of them for good reason. It didn't sell well. There was pressure from the automotive side to lower costs. And we're a relatively small battery company, and we were already losing money. So we were getting squeezed out. So the company, we decided to make a complete pivot. We had this technology which made the battery safer. We took advantage of that technology and changed the way we made the cells. We changed the way the electrolytes that we could use in the cells. And the outcome being was a lithium-ion product which was both safer and could also manage a much larger number of cycles. So the number of charge-discharge cycles you can do before it reaches its end of life. Now, putting that in perspective, I'm sure your listeners are very familiar with their phones, and your phones do about 500 to 700 cycles before they reach their 80% of their initial capacity. And 80% is typically what's referred to as the end of life. Automotive batteries, they're a little bit better. Maybe they're getting 1,000 to 2,000 cycles, 2,000 rare, but that's sort of the range. The batteries that Electrovaya developed are getting about 9 to 10,000 cycles. So 4 or 5 times the cycle life of typical lithium-ion batteries. And so we said, okay, we've got this very unique technology here, but it's always going to be more expensive. We're smaller than the big Korean and Chinese battery companies. Let's not go head to head anymore, or we won't be in business. And so we looked for applications which could take advantage of that type of performance and pay a bit more for it. And we focused our efforts initially on material handling. So this is your warehousing applications, things that happen behind doors. But these are vehicles that are operating 24/7. Sometimes they're quite often being used for 3 shifts. The typical operations actually would have battery swapping in their operations. So they would typically swap batteries every shift.
And when you say, just to clarify, Raj, when you say material handling, you're talking forklifts, right?
Primarily forklifts. That's grown to forklifts and robots to quite a high degree. And now the forklifts themselves are turning into robots. So there's a great deal of transition occurring in that sector, which is also growing tremendously due to everyone ordering everything from groceries to diapers online. So that's what we made as our initial focus because of that heavy duty cycle. Also, the fact that these are vehicles that operate indoors.
Yeah.
So if you go to a typical e-commerce company or Walmart distribution center, you'll see that they will have maybe hundreds of vehicles operating in these warehouses. And these warehouses have fire sensitive materials, etc. So they cannot tolerate any sort of safety issue. Not to say safety issues should be tolerated anywhere, but it's a greatly different scenario having something inside a building than outside. So that's what we focused on. We have been successful there. Electrovaya is now supplying, I think, about 12 Fortune 100 companies today, including the largest retailers in the world. And they see fundamentally the reason they want this technology is it provides them a lower life cycle cost. And if it's providing them a lower life cycle cost, that's because it's lasting longer. It can handle the high duty cycles without degrading. It also has a higher impact on the environment because this is a battery that doesn't degrade. If putting it in comparison to an electric vehicle, and Tom, I know you drive one, I drive one. We commute in these vehicles, but they spend most of the time parked. Maybe in my case, probably 23 out of 24 hours it's parked.
Similar.
And if you compare that to a material handling vehicle, 23 out of 24 hours it's moving. And so it's a huge amount of higher utilization. And as a result, if you're electrifying something which would have otherwise been powered by an IC engine, your impact is substantially better than if you're converting a passenger EV. And even if you're converting a vehicle which would be powered by lead acid batteries are very inefficient compared to lithium-ion batteries, you're also having a significant GHG impact. So every battery that Electrovaya is making is not going to landfill for a very, very long time or recycling for a very, very long time. And B, it's having a tremendous impact just through its operations, just through the extensive utilization of the batteries in those environments. So that's what we've gotten our start on, which is the material handling sector, and we're growing rapidly there. We're partnered with the largest OEM in the sector, which is the Toyota Group, but we see opportunities elsewhere as well. So electric buses is a sector where we're actively pursuing. Mining trucks is another one that is come to mind recently, but is also a 22-hour per day type operation. And there are a few others as well. So we're really targeting only the super high duty cycle sectors, but there are lots of them. They're growing quickly. The electrification movement overall is unstoppable.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, it's fantastic that you have batteries that last 4 to 5 times longer than typical EV batteries. What's missing from that, I don't know, is the energy density. How do your batteries compare in energy density to the likes of lithium-ion batteries, whether it's lithium iron phosphate or whatever other chemistries are out there?
So that's a great question, and there are chemistries out there that do get cycle life, like Electrovaya's technology, and that would be lithium titanate. However, that technology gets less than half the energy density, and as a result, it becomes cost prohibitive and may not even have the performance attributes to make certain applications viable. In our case, our technology is really that platform. It's really the separator is the main piece, but also the electrolyte and some nuances in the assembly process, which makes this ultimately a platform technology. We can apply it to any cathode, any anode, and get a benefit with respect to the longevity and a benefit with respect to safety. So what we're produced right now is an NMC graphite-based cell. And we focused on NMC primarily because our benefits get more accentuated with that chemistry. So that chemistry is one of the higher energy density chemistries out there, which is why it's utilized in most of the EV applications.
Sure.
However, to its detriment is cycle life and safety, right? So, and we fix those two items with our technology. So in terms of the Electrovaya's energy density, it is comparable to any of the other NMC producers. The only slight difference is we are using ceramic separators, which are a bit heavier, but the ultimate difference is maybe 10-15% in energy density maximum. So it's not a big difference.
Okay. It occurs to me as well that another potential use would be for the likes of stationary storage for grids, because again, those kind of batteries are going to need lots of cycles because they'll be constantly taking in and giving out energy to compensate for the variability in production of energy from renewables, for example. And if they're doing grid services, frequency on grids, then yeah, they'll be charging and discharging the whole time. Is that a vertical that you're looking into as well?
You make a very good point, Tom. So that vertical, you're correct. The more it's used, the higher the cycle count, the more useful it is for energy storage, and the more income the site operators will get. Right. So technically, they need a technology which cycles as long as possible
And is safe.
and is safe. So that said, if you look at at least the grid scale sites for the last 10, 15 years, most of them have been built by developers who are responding to RFPs from the local constituencies or ISOs. And they tend to go to lowest capital cost solutions as opposed to lowest life cycle cost solutions. Which is unfortunate because the life cycle is really what what matters.
Sure.
We're seeing that mentality start to shift, and that's due to lessons learned. So if you walk into some of the big battery recycling sites, there's a great Canadian company, Canada-US company called Li-Cycle, and I think they have operations in Europe too. if you walk into one of their sites, the most batteries you'll see that are getting recycled are these grid scale batteries because they're reaching their end of life much earlier than the developers had thought. And that's because they're putting an automotive battery into energy storage. And in automotive battery, you're doing one cycle a week. Energy storage, you're doing one cycle per day.
Yeah.
It's a nearly an order of magnitude difference in utilization, and that's what's ending up happening. So now we're starting to look at that application in more with more focus. Again, we're a business, so we want to sell our currently limited production to the highest cost sale potential, and energy storage hasn't been there. But we believe that's going to change in the coming years. So we're currently actively looking at projects in 2020 that would require delivery in 2027, 2026, that kind of time period.
Okay, cool. And, what is your, I want to say, go-to-market strategy? As in, it seems like your technology is phenomenal, loads of cycles, compatible or similar energy density, significantly safer. So if you could scale this up through partnerships, through licensing, through whatever, is that a path you're planning to follow to try and scale up, or are you just doing it all internally?
So what we're seeing is the heavy duty space, the heavy duty market space, which especially if you just let's look at some of these key sectors, material handling. Buses in Europe is definitely ahead. I just came back from London, and a good percentage of the buses are already electrified there. But here, that's still nascent. Trucking is definitely, we're just scratching the surface. Mining trucks, I think, is almost none. So what we're seeing is huge growth potential in the heavy duty space because it all has to be electrified. Heavy duty industries are going to have a higher GHG impact than per unit, right?
Yeah.
Per vehicle or per kilowatt hour than a car. But they're a little further behind on the electrification for the most part. So we're not too late. So we're building up capacity right now. We're building a giga scale plant in New York State, not too far from where I am right now in Toronto. And that's going to provide a lot of the capacity growth that we see in the near term. In terms of partnerships, this technology, while we figured it out, and we have lots of IP around it. It's the big battery companies are more, to be honest, more focused on the car market because that's the largest market, and that market is requiring a different technology ultimately. So it requires higher energy density and low cost, and the margins are very very tight in that market. And that's not what we've participated in that before. It's very, very tough. That's whoever succeeds, well done. But Electrovaya is now a profitable battery company. We've now done 2 quarters back to back, making net profits. We want to be a profitable, healthy business going forward. And if you want to get into the automotive space, right now you have to be prepared to lose a lot of money before you eventually you break even. And so our go-to market strategy for the most part is just grow the company as quickly as possibly, but in a profitable manner and with the market. We don't want to be ahead of the market. We want to be with the market. And I think with all businesses, I think there's a certain degree of luck and timing that goes with it. And I think that wind is with us this time. Electrovaya has historically been ahead of the market with technologies. Right now, we're hitting this one right when it's in its growth curve. So I think it's a matter of execution, which we have a very smart and able team here at the company. So I'm optimistic. Where we see opportunities in terms of partnerships, though, that's next generation battery technologies. So we have a separate team at the company working under the banner of Electrify Labs. It's actually in a separate building. And there they're working on ceramic separators, but not the ones that we're currently using. They're working on ceramic separators for solid state batteries.
Okay.
And where we see, if we're successful with developing that technology, that the scale of which is much higher in potential demand, and that's where we would definitely look to partner with other companies.
Sure. Because that was going to be my next question around solid state batteries, because we're starting to see more announcements about solid state batteries coming to market. So my question was going to be, is it something that you're looking at? And obviously it is. When do you see that becoming a product that reaches scale?
So a solid state battery, just giving your viewers a idea of what it is essentially you're trying to remove two large parts of the lithium-ion battery, and that's the liquid electrolyte, remove it entirely or vast majority of which, and the anode. The anode is currently graphite. If you remove it, you get just you could use lithium metal, which would have a significantly higher energy density. So the targeted outcome for all these players who are seeking the holy grail of battery technology is a battery which is effectively double the energy density of your current automotive grade battery. So it's a game-changing battery technology.
Sure.
It would double the range of your EVs or half the weight of your battery systems. It's very attractive. To date, no one has commercialized solid-state batteries to any degree, and there are challenges with the technology. The technology, for the most part, is going to rely on a ceramic separator. That separator now has to operate as the electrolyte. Most of the industry and most of the research sphere is going the way of ceramics as opposed to polymers because it has higher conductivity. And if you've heard the last 20 minutes of our conversation, Electrovaya is a company that has successfully commercialized a ceramic separator before. We're the only company that I know of that is using ceramic separators like that. And so we're optimistic our approach here can leverage some of those lessons that we've developed over the last 10 years. So that's what we're working on. We're not ready. It's not ready to be commercialized yet. I can't say with R&D, it's very hard to say, we're going to be in production on such and such a day. I know there have been companies that have made some of those claims, and maybe they're ahead, but that's where we are. Right now, we're targeting sampling cells, though, in a few months.
Okay, cool. And in terms of your current customers, do you have any kind of case studies that you can speak to, any kind of successes or wins you can talk to in terms of, we were using this type of battery or this type of power source for our material handling units up until now? We switched to Electrovaya, and now we're X% more efficient, Y% less greenhouse gases, whatever it is.
Oh, a good one. Yeah, I'll think of one, which was actually one of the early customers, which was Walmart, who effectively saved Electrovaya. It was a time when the company
Nice.
was a bit on the rocks. 2018, we just closed down a lot of our German operations, and we had a lot of losses to deal with from that. But they really liked the technology. We demonstrated it at a number of distribution centers in the US and Canada, and then they selected it for one of them in Canada. And so what we ended up converting was a site which had approximately 150 of these vehicles, these forklift vehicles. These are not small electric vehicles.
Right.
The average capacity on one of these was about 30 to 40 kilowatt hours. And they would be having 3 lead acid batteries per vehicle.
Wow.
So you can imagine a building with, let's say, 150 vehicles and 450 batteries. And They would be swapping these out with giant magnetic swapping stations, which lifting 2,000-pound batteries in and out of vehicles every shift.
Wow.
And you picture a lineup of vehicles at the shift change, trying to get their batteries changed, so the next shift could start with a fresh battery. So the reason they had 3 batteries per vehicle is they had one driving the vehicle, obviously, one ready to go, and the third one would be getting charged.
Right.
So we went in and we came in with our technology. We said, you can use Electrovaya's battery. It'll charge because it's got such long cycle life, and the way we designed the battery, you could charge very quickly. So we could replace a whole shift's worth of use in 20 minutes. So very fast charge, because the longevity is there. They don't need to replace the batteries. And so we went with 1 battery per truck instead of 3. And one other piece before I go further is those 3 batteries per vehicle, after 5 years or even less, 3 to 5 years, they would have to replace all of them. So this is a fast degrading environment for any type of battery. And so we swapped out all the lead acid, and we went from 3 batteries per truck to 1. And we went from 1 charger per truck to 0.5. So half a charger, 1 charger will be shared by 2. And so big change in the operation. The charging space went down, the batteries changing space went down, so there was more space for other more inventory.
Yeah.
And so their return on investment was very rapid, because the main piece of the cost for them was not the assets. It was really that changing operation, which would cost a lot of time and lost productivity for the operation. In terms of electricity savings, there was a significant electricity savings just because of the efficiency difference between our battery and the incumbent lead acid battery. So they didn't give us the exact numbers, but they were saving thousands and thousands of dollars per year.
Wow.
In terms of our estimates, there's probably about a 20% electricity savings, which is
Nice.
Which is big, and perhaps 20 to 30%. So we don't know exactly, but it would be high, because you save electricity both on the charging side, because when you charge these lead acid batteries, only maybe 70% of the electrons make it into the battery. Others are going into heat and some hydrogen gas formation, etc. And then when the battery's powering the vehicle, again, some of it's going to the motors, but some of the energy is going to heat as well. In our case, the lithium-ion battery is much more efficient, both on the charging side and on the discharging side in the truck. So big savings there. The proudest point, though, I have is that those batteries have been operating now for 5 years in that incredibly heavy usage environment. And after 5 years, there's probably been about 2 to 3% degradation on the batteries.
Wow.
So they're going to last 10 plus years in that type of application. So that's a real testament to how good this technology is in that type of environment.
Cool. And where to next for Electrovaya? I mean, you've mentioned the Gigafactory in New York, and you've mentioned the solid state. Is there anything else in the horizon that you're aiming for? Where do you expect to be kind of 5-10 years from now?
So the last thing is we're trying to add a lot more. So 5-10 years is a great question. So I would love to see continued growth in the material handling sector, for instance. Right now, we're still scratching the surface. We're working with really the big, wealthy companies. Sooner or later, the mid-sized companies are going to join the party there. So I think right now, lithium-ion batteries and our batteries in particular, penetrating maybe under 10% of market share with our OEM partner. And we expect to see that continue to grow. I also want to see, of course, our solutions make our way into transit buses. Transit buses are dear to my heart because I used to take the bus a lot. And but in North America, we've seen that sector not move well to lithium ion power. And for the most part, companies have been utilizing automotive cells in packs, large packs, and the bus routes are long, so they need 500 kilowatt hour battery systems per bus, and they're not faring well. There have been recalls on pretty much every major bus OEM relating to the battery packs, mostly around safety. And we see that as a sign that you can't use the same automotive battery that you put in your car into a bus. It's a different type of application. And so I see that as a key potential market for us, where we're going to be delivering some of our first high voltage systems later this year. And I would like to see bus and truck a significant part of our business 25 onwards. So that's another piece. And the third is adding some smarts to these batteries, right? So, and we're starting to do that. So right now they just charge in, charge out, and that's how we're looking at. We're adding in some newer functions to the batteries. One of which will be demand response.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be able to charge these systems with some level of smarts, right? So you can say, this battery is already 90%, doesn't need to be charged further. But battery number 3 does. It's only at this state of charge. Or you getting a step further would be saying, this vehicle is not utilized very much, but this vehicle is utilized a lot, so let's charge that one at a higher rate. So that kind of system, and taking it a step further would be a battery to grid, right? So in Electrovaya's case, you have a battery that doesn't really degrade.
Yeah.
And so you want to use that energy storage asset as much as possible, which would not be the case in your EV. So, but in this case, you do. So using it as energy storage when it's charging or parked, for sure, and then use it for powering the vehicle in other times. So that's the directions we want to move in as a company.
Okay, what about other sectors like the marine transport sector and the aviation sectors? Because they need safe batteries as well, and ones that, again, cycle a lot.
So marine is a good one. We haven't looked, marine is one we haven't looked at in a great deal. The sector after that we're looking at, though, is mining. Mining vehicles operate with huge amounts of diesel. Same as marine, but huge amounts of diesel. But unlike marine, they're operating 20 plus hours per day. So in many cases. And there, the electrification is both going to have a huge impact on the environment. But again, there are not many batteries technologies that can meet that type of demand. And I think that is one where we're going to look at more closely in the coming months.
Sure. And a lot of mines are typically remote, sometimes off-grid. So if they have local renewable generation sources, coupling that with electric mine vehicles makes a really nice way of extracting minerals, which isn't nearly as damaging.
Correct. Actually, we're talking to one mining company who does extract lithium, right?
Yeah,
so
nice.
It's coming full circle, and they would love to see that become more green. And it's not just becoming more green; it's a more efficient operation overall. These remote sites, trucking in diesel is not efficient. It's very costly. It's
and polluting.
And the vehicles themselves are actually designed around electric from the get-go, sort of like your locomotive trains.
Yeah.
The diesel is there to power the electric motors.
Yeah, of course. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Raj. Is there any question I haven't asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to think about?
No. Just as a takeaway, I would say, Electrovaya is a interesting battery technology company in this space, and the batteries we're making are going to have a tremendous outsized impact on GHG reduction. I'm not saying anything negative about the car batteries because that's important as well, but we're going to have a outsized impact overall. And this technology is what the world needs. We need technologies which last a long time, which don't make their way into landfill, which can have a much higher level of green impact than your standard batteries.
Sure. Great. Raj, that's been fascinating. If people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we discussed in the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Of course, our website's great to start. So electrovaya.com. We also post some good updates on our LinkedIn page as well, which is Electrovaya on LinkedIn. And hopefully you'll be hearing more about us as we do more outreach.
Superb. Great. Raj, that's been fascinating. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much.